So, welcome back, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed your workshop sessions. I'm sure you got a lot out of them. In this plenary session, we're now going to have the chance to hear firsthand from some of our speakers about their personal journeys to leadership and what they've learned along the way, which is very exciting. There will be a Q&A afterwards, and you'll all have an opportunity to ask a question if you'd like. So maybe start thinking about that now, and I'll tell you a bit more about how that works when we come back. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Meredith Hunter from the University of Canberra, who are our venue sponsors for today. Meredith is the Executive Officer to the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Global, and she comes to this role following a long and varied career that's included being the Director of the Youth Coalition of the ACT for over 10 years, and also being an elected member of the ACT Legislative Assembly from 2008 to 2012, during which time she was also the parliamentary leader of the Greens. So very exciting to have Meredith with us. If you could please welcome her to the stage.
Thanks, and it's fantastic to be able to be here with you today to hear how the workshops have been going. I think this is a fantastic initiative of the Y, and I know that the University of Canberra are very pleased and proud to be associated with this fantastic conference. So, what does leadership mean to me? Well, as you've heard, I've held a number of leadership roles in the community sector and leading a political party. But leadership is not necessarily about having the highest office in the land or about being the CEO of a large company or organisation. Great leadership occurs every day in families, in neighbourhoods, in communities, in schools. Many of you have already shown yourselves to be leaders, whether that's captaining a debating team or a sporting team, or standing up against injustice, for instance, not allowing bullying to go on in your school. There's a debate about whether great leaders are born or whether they're made. And I don't have a definitive answer as to what it is, whether it's one or the other or bits of both. But I can say that growing up, I was influenced by some fantastic, strong women who supported me in whatever I wanted to do and the challenges I wanted to take on. They were my grandmothers, my mother, my friends, teachers, and work colleagues. In fact, one of my grandmothers was a president of the YWCA here in Canberra back in the late 40s, I think it was. She came to Canberra and she decided she wanted to be part of the community. So she ended up being the president and founding member of many women's organisations. That was very important in a very small place where women needed to be connected with other women and to have that support. So, as I say, it is about the strong people, the influence they have on your lives. And as I say, it can come from your friends, it can come from your family, it can come from your teachers. So when I look at what led me to take on some of those roles, I would go back to my earlier life and being able to take up opportunities at school, opportunities to participate in teams, to take up being the captain of the softball team, through to participating in many activities and being able to learn from those around me, the way that they conducted themselves and the leadership that was shown by older girls in the school, but also my peers. I think that we all know that communication is one of the most important things for a good leader. Communicating and networking. And women are very good at communicating and networking. You do need to be able to rely on others, to be able to pull in the resources, to pull in the people power in order to achieve goals. When I first took on the role of Director of the Youth Coalition of the ACT, the organisation was floundering. It was in debt. It wasn't well respected by youth organisations across the sector. And so it was only by networking, by building those relationships with other organisations, that we built the respect for the organisation so that when I left 10 years later, we were well respected. We had nearly 100 members and we had nearly $1 million in grants on various projects. That wouldn't have happened without good communication, communicating our vision, but also that networking. And this leads me on to the importance of fostering teams, because a leader is only a leader if you have a team around you. And I think that a good leader is able to really nurture and foster the skills and abilities and capabilities of those in their team. And it's really important to have self-confidence, to recognise and to promote the contribution that others make to that team, to not feel threatened by them, but actually give credit where credit's due. This is incredibly vital if you're going to build the confidence in your leadership, but as I said, to nurture the skills, to provide the opportunities for those people who make up your team. Because if they're doing well, you're doing well. Leading by showing is incredibly important. It's by showing, it's by doing. So at the Youth Coalition, I may have met with auditors and run meetings and talked to bureaucrats about new programs, lobbied governments for funding. But that didn't stop me from cutting up onions and doing sausage sizzles and setting up the displays in Garima Place every year for the Youth Expo. You have to get in there and do everything. As I said, you need to show by doing. You need to also have courage in your convictions. Convictions that courage around that you're making the best decision in the best interests of your community, your company, or your cause. And you also need courage to be able to step outside your comfort zone. And I can tell you that being a politician can be stepping outside your comfort zone. It provides plenty of opportunities. Getting up and doing lots of public speaking, being able to get up and debate, be able to face up to people yelling abuse at you across the chamber, put forward views that not everybody in the community agrees with, and then go out and do a stall at a shopping centre and have people wandering past and having their say. Sometimes not very pleasantly. I think that this quote from Eleanor Roosevelt sums it up. And she said, "You gain strength, courage and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You must do the thing you think you cannot do." There will be times when you don't succeed. So it's important to build your resilience so that you can weather that disapproval, disagreement on the stands or opinions that you offer. This is going to happen. And by not succeeding doesn't mean that it's all over, you've failed and should pack up and go home. Certainly one of the biggest losses in work life that I've ever encountered was losing my seat in the 2012 election campaign. And that was incredibly hard to go through, to survive. But it is about that resilience. And it doesn't mean that life's over or that you don't have causes and campaigns and passions that you'll continue to pursue after an experience like that. So please, if you fail, it's not all over. Cooperation and collaboration will take you so much farther than conflict and competition. Again, something that I think women are very good at, cooperation and collaboration. As the leader of the Greens, I frequently said to people that we as the Greens didn't have the monopoly on all good ideas, and that regardless of the political party that put forward a new idea or a new initiative, that we would look at all of those on their merits. We wouldn't just dismiss them because it came from another party. Because by cooperation, by collaboration, by taking on and being open to other people's ideas, we could achieve a better outcome for our community. Another important thing, I think, is that great listeners make great leaders. None of us can say that we're the expert on everything. By listening and asking questions, we gain important insights and knowledge that is likely to benefit our decision making. We also need to be able to admit when we're wrong. And as they say, to err is to be human. And no matter what position or office you hold, you will make mistakes. But there's more integrity in admitting and learning from those mistakes. I think leadership survival and being a good leader is also about having a good sense of humour. When you're out there, there can be times that are incredibly stressful. And to be able to have a good laugh to break that tension, I think is incredibly helpful and grounding, can just help you break that tension and then to be able to refocus. So I thought I'd leave you with another quote. And this one is from a former US President, Dwight Eisenhower. And he said, "You don't lead by hitting people over the head. That's assault, not leadership." Thanks.
Thank you so much, Meredith, for sharing those insights. So now we'll move on to our speakers today. And first up, I'm very excited to introduce Carly Finlay. Carly is a blogger, a writer, a speaker, and an appearance activist. Carly was named one of Australia's most influential women in the Australian Financial Review and Westpac 100 Women of Influence Awards in 2014. And I know that I'm very excited to hear from Carly, so please make her welcome.
Hello. So firstly, a big congratulations to everyone who's here today. You're all really hardworking and so accomplished, and I just loved hearing your experiences shared in the workshops this morning. It was amazing, and you're so intelligent and wise. And thank you again to the YAWCAs for having me as well. So I'm Carly, and I'm a writer, a speaker, an appearance activist, a traveller, fiancée, sometimes TV presenter, an aspiring chef and music lover. I write about what it's like to look different, and I also have a full-time job. So right now I'm organising a meet for people with the same skin condition as me. I'll talk a bit about that later. There are 75 patients and families that are coming, and 24 of those have the condition, and the meet's on Saturday. So when I get home tonight, I have to pack all the goodie bags, 75 of them. It's crazy. So just as Zoya mentioned earlier, my career path hasn't been straight either. So when I was at school, I wanted to be a journalist, but I didn't do that degree. I did a business degree and I hated it. Then I worked full-time and I studied Masters of Communication part-time, and it took that for me to find my career path. So, like many of you do, I find meaning in song lyrics. So I'm going to use some of those song lyrics in my talk today. Maybe you'll recognise them, maybe they'll be a bit outside of your era, but I hope they'll relate, or you'll relate. So I'm going to start with Lady Gaga. She sang, "I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Don't hide yourself in regret, just love yourself and you're set." So those lyrics set the tone for my talk. So I was born this way. I was born with a rare, severe genetic skin condition called ichthyosis. 20 people per million have the condition, and there's over 24 variations, and I've got one of the severe types. Mine means scaly red skin, and the doctors didn't think I'd live this long. Unlike Lady Gaga, I also love myself, not in the up myself way, but I'm proud of who I am way, despite what others expect. So my condition means that my skin is inflamed, scaly and itchy and sore, and it affects my eyes and my ears and my metabolism and temperature regulation. Every day, twice a day, I cover myself in Vaseline, and sometimes I get so sore I have to go to hospital for intravenous antibiotics and to be bandaged up like a mummy. But there are upsides, and my skin renews itself very, very quickly, so I might look like I've just finished high school. Although I did that Facebook thing the other day, and it said I got 45, and I was really disappointed. So most of the time it's pretty good, but I always do look this red. Sometimes it varies, and there's always an element of pain. So the next lyric is from a band that I used to listen to when I was your age. You might remember them. You might not have even been born then, actually. Savage Garden. So I loved them, and I still listen to them now. The lyric goes, I wonder if you know the pain to want the one thing you haven't got. I experienced the pain of wanting friendship for a long time. When I was at high school and primary school, I had very few friends. There were people I called friends, but they didn't really treat me well. And there was only one girl I hung out with for about 3 years until I wasn't good enough for her anymore. And I hardly went to any parties. And people are afraid of the different, especially when they're egged on by their friends to make fun of and exclude people that look different or who are different. And I just wanted to look normal, to fit in. And most of my lunch times were spent in the library, alone, listening to Savage Garden, writing poetry. So when the library wasn't open, I'd hang around in the school office. I was called names. That was the extent of the bullying, but the isolation was the worst. And when I was at school, I couldn't imagine getting up on this stage to make a speech like I'm doing today. But even now, as an adult, people still stare and comment at me, and they can't get past the way I look. I can see their minds flicking over when they see me, and they stop talking when they see me, wondering how I got so sunburnt. And sometimes they laugh, other times they comment on my appearance to their friends or to me directly. I've been prayed for, offered all sorts of cures, and there isn't a cure, and told how ugly I look to my face. Teenagers have taken photos of me on their phones, probably sharing them with their friends on social media. It's tiring, but it's also a way to meet really interesting and lovely people. And for every awful person I've met, I get at least 10 wonderful ones. So after school, well, maybe just during the end of school, I found my tribe. I found it when I started working at Kmart when I was in Year 12. And then when I went to university, and then when I moved to Melbourne from Albury. I found it in the blogging community and also the disability community. And I finally have real friends. And there was no one like me at school. No one else looked different. No one that I knew of had a disability. I didn't even identify with having a disability then. I thought it was a negative thing. So I know there are a lot of people in this conference today who feel like I did. You may feel alone or different, like things will never get better. You might not have a skin condition, but you might have a learning disability or a physical disability. You might be a different size or shape to what you think is normal. You might identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual, or intersex. You might follow a different faith to your friends, or you might come from a diverse cultural background. So I want you to know that there's no such thing as normal. Normal is just a setting on the dishwasher. I want you to know that you're not alone, and that if things are hard in school, there's a big world outside of school with many opportunities for you to find your tribe too. And there are people out there that will get you, who will share the same interests as you, and will love spending time with you. It does get better. So U2, a band that you probably haven't heard of unless you got the download to your iPhone last year, has got a song called Stuck in a Moment. And the song goes, you've got yourself stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. And I reiterate, you're not alone and there is help. If you find yourself stuck in a moment, reach out to a trusted family member or an older friend, or talk to a teacher you trust, or call the kids helpline. And I ask teachers, if there's any in the room, to please act when a student comes to you, telling you that they're stuck in a moment, because the teachers might be the only people that those children can turn to. So with all the medical and social challenges that I've had, and looking really different to most people, how have I come to love myself? It took a while, but I came to realise I'll never look like most people do, and that's okay. So another quote from Savage Garden, I promise it's not only going to be there. They sang, I believe that beauty magazines create low self-esteem. And I also believe that. I gave up on reading magazines, or trashy magazines, long ago. I stopped comparing myself to the models in the magazines, and I started to believe in myself. I got to love fashion and take pride in how I looked, and then I started making my own media with a blog that gets over 70,000 views a month. And I tell my story in my own way without the exploitation and sensationalism that you often see in the media about disabilities and rare illnesses. So I urge you, if you're feeling bad about the way you look or the way you're portrayed, stop reading those magazines which place unrealistic body image pressures on us. You're not them, you are you. So my friend and mentor, Stella Young, disability activist and comedian, who passed away last year, she wrote a letter to her 16-year-old self when she was 31. In it, she wrote, "Able-bodiedness is not the holy grail. The body that you are in is perfectly fine, perfectly beautiful. In fact, you know that though sometimes the thought occurs to you and you're actually luckier than the other girls because your body is just too different to compare it to the girls in Dolly. And that's the thought you should indulge. You are every bit as liberated by that body as you are constrained by it. Look after it and love it." Stella Young, she nailed body confidence. So my next lyric is from Lord's Tennis Court. She sings, "I'm doing it for the thrill of it, killing it, never not chasing the million things I want." So I challenge you to do the things that you love, to chase lots of goals, to take on opportunities that you never thought you would. They don't have to be at school, they can be in the community or online or for your family, and of course when you're finished with school. And chances are when you do something you love, you'll do well at it, killing it, as Lord says. Katy Perry sang in Raw, "I went from zero to my own hero." And I challenge you also to be your own heroes. In recent years, I've made my path to be my own hero, and I've made a difference that I'm proud of. In 2013, I was abused by a taxi driver. He told me my face would ruin his cab, and then I smell. I got out of the car and into another cab, and then I tweeted the event to my 5,000 followers. And I blogged about it, and then I used that blog post to lodge 3 complaints, right up to the Human Rights Commission. I called on my blog readers to share their stories, wow, and also to participate in a training program for the taxi company. And they came, they told their stories of discrimination. And the taxi company now made a video from people talking about disability diversity. The lady from the taxi company wrote to me a few weeks ago telling me that since that video's been out in June 2014, the incidence of complaints around disability discrimination has decreased, which has been amazing. So I hope that through me speaking up, more people will feel empowered to speak up if they experience disability discrimination in taxis, but also more drivers will realise the consequences of discrimination. And then later that year, my photo was misused on Reddit. So I woke up to find 3,000 hits on my blog, and I hadn't blogged that for a while, and I thought, what are they all coming for? And people were ridiculing it. They were ridiculing, dissecting and misdiagnosing my illness and appearance. And these keyboard warriors, they were sitting at their computers making fun of a stranger on the internet, and it was pretty hateful. And I didn't cry about it. I actually posted a calm response, and then I went viral. It was a bit crazy, actually. The next morning after I blogged about it, CNN were contacting me, and I had to write for Mamma Mia and some other outlets. And my blog received 70,000 hits in 2 days, not 1 month. And Charlie Pickering mentioned me on the project, which is pretty exciting. So I took control of that bad situation, and I turned the negative conversation into a positive one, educating people. And even now, a few weeks ago, my story got used in England and then in Italy and Denmark, and it's a story that keeps on giving. So I feared for a long time before I started blogging that my photo would one day be misused, so I was very reluctant to share it, and now I'm pretty confident about it. But I don't advise you to take on any keyboard warriors, especially without emotional support from people you trust, but I do hope that you can be your own hero and make a difference in your own worlds. You can be your own hero by being a leader. If you see people being mean to others, in person or online, call them out on their bad behaviour. Don't make fun of the way someone looks by posting a photo or commenting on a photo of them on the internet. They may be watching and they will be hurt. Don't ridicule or exclude people who look different. Include the people who are excluded. Welcome them into your lives, get to know them. Sometimes the best friends you make are those who are much different to you. Never be embarrassed to be seen with someone who is different. And if you're the person doing the bullying, stop. When I left school almost 16 years ago, I never imagined I'd be living this life. I never thought I'd fit in. I never thought I'd be a published writer, and I never get to speak at events like these. I never thought I'd be engaged either. And most of all, I never thought I'd be using my appearance, the thing that held me back, that I most wanted to change. I never thought I'd be using it to my advantage. So my final quote, it's from Darren Hayes. He's the lead singer of Savage Garden. He's like my idol. I actually invited him to my wedding. He hasn't replied yet. Last year we chatted on a podcast, and I was so excited. I got to chat for 7 minutes. Oh, it was amazing. Anyway, so on the podcast he said to me, we were talking about difference, and he said, what sets you apart makes you a target, and what sets you apart makes you unique. And I want you all, when you leave here, is to be proud of your uniqueness, to love yourself, to celebrate who you are, to use social media for social good. And look out and include others. Look out for and include others, and be your hero. And thank you. And if you want to read my blog, you can. Sorry. So you can Google Carly Findlay, or it might be in the speaker notes as well. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much, Carly. That was unbelievably inspiring, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions in the Q&A section, so be prepared. I'm going to move on to our next speaker now. I'd like to introduce Pia Waugh. Pia is an open government and open data ninja who is passionate about the power of tech culture and was also named one of the top 100 women of influence in Australia in 2014. So please make Pia welcome.
Sorry.
Thank you. I should apologise up front. I am sick as a dog. But it just shows how much I love this stuff that I've dragged myself out of bed to still come and chat to you all today, but don't come close. I promise I'll try to not infect all of you. Maybe just a few. What I thought I'd do is talk about a little bit about my journey and then just give you some of the lessons learnt that I took out of that. I'm a geek. I've been a geek my whole life. But when I was at school, see, my mum was in IT, so I was sort of always had access to computers since I was little. And when I was at school, I always sort of thought that I was either going to go into IT or, interestingly enough, Chinese medicine. That was sort of the two options I was looking at. I saw one as being soulful and one as being non-soulful. I bet you can guess which one is which. When I left school, I basically started looking at Chinese medicine. I actually went on exchange, and if any of you have ever the opportunity to go on exchange to another country, then I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful experience. But what I found was that I really gravitated back to technology. This is sort of in the mid-90s, I guess, and technology was really starting to have a huge impact. The internet was only new back then. I know for all of you it's all pretty mainstream, but it was only really starting to be adopted. It certainly wasn't mainstream back then. So I remember being at school and dialing into chat servers and doing all kinds of naughty stuff I shouldn't have been doing at school, but it was great fun. But what I found was technology isn't just this soulless sort of thing that you do. It's not this thing that, is just sort of geeks working in, or nerds even working in the basement alone by themselves. It's actually the thing that transforms societies. It empowers people, it creates great opportunities for everyone, regardless of who they are, where they're from, what they're interested in, what sector they want to go and work in. And I guess what I found was I started working in IT and just sort of as a technical person, and started to realise that the impact of technology on humans, on actual people, was far more profound than I'd ever imagined. So then I started getting involved in activism. Now, I wasn't paid to get involved in activism. I just started getting involved in user groups and looking at what was happening around the world. I had the amazing opportunity to go to a United Nations conference when I was 23, which was a big eye-opening, wonderful experience to see how technology, helps communities that are far more poor and far more, disempowered than I guess we have, than we take for granted in the vast majority of Australia. Not all Australia, but most of Australia. And I found that my communities were not anymore, the town that I grew up in, or the people that I went to school with, or the people that my parents knew. My community started to be people from all around the world. And this is sort of one of the interesting things about the internet. The internet has changed everything. Because I mean, I'm sure a lot of you, I'm sure you've got friends in your schools and in your universities and in your immediate communities. But I'm sure a lot of you also have contacts around the world. How many people here have regular contact with someone in a different city, in a different country? Yeah. See, 10 years ago that totally wouldn't have been the case. It's very, very interesting how the world is changing. And what we're finding is that we can do so much more and we can rally these communities of interest from around the world. Anyway, so what did I do? I started working in IT. I started working for like big companies, basically just fixing stuff. And then I sort of worked my way up to designing big systems. Started working in the activism to try to change things that I saw as being, unjust. And that was a big eye-opening experience. And then a few years later, I had the opportunity to go and work for a minister, for a politician. Don't hold that against me. It was really interesting because I hate politics. I hate it with a passion. I think politics gets in the way of democracy, and which sounds very nasty, and it is a little bit. But I wanted to understand the system. I wanted to understand when someone comes up with a bright idea, and then wants to make that idea real, and then they take it through, politics or the parliament, or how do things go from being someone's idea to actually affecting all of us? I wanted to understand that system, so I worked in that for a little while. Then I started to work for one of the state governments, and now I work in the federal government. So what I've done in the last couple of years has been actually running the open data policy and implementation for the Australian government. So really trying to open up more government data to make it easier to use and to write applications around and to innovate on and to, to have a more transparent and democratic, I guess, Australia, which has been quite exciting. In every part of my career, and career's a funny word, like people sort of say, what's your 5-year plan? I think 5-year plans are a terrible idea, to be honest. I think 10-year plans are an even worse idea because you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what's going to change. And I've always believed you do whatever you're doing now as best as you can, in the best possible way you can, and you keep your eye open to opportunities, because then you'll, through experimentation, find what you love, be able to rule out the things you don't love, be able to find the things you're good at, rule out the things you're not good at, and then be able to actually follow the opportunities as they come along. I could not have mapped out what I'm doing now 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but I love what I do now. And what I get to do now is very hard to explain to my family or to, indeed, anyone outside of the IT sector. But, what I get to do now is to look at how government uses technology for the benefit of all of us, for the benefit of all Australians, for the benefit of the world to some degree, and how we dramatically improve how we dramatically improve government through that process. So I'll give you a couple of, I guess, lessons from my experience. I've been very lucky to some degree to have achieved some of the things I've achieved. I've set up a lot of community initiatives in my spare time, in my volunteer time. My favourite one is GovHack. So GovHack is a national hackfest where we get thousands of people, whether they're developers or students or design people or graphic design people or whatever, to get together and to play around with government data to create better ways of improving people's lives. And it's a once-a-year event. We do it all with volunteers, and it's just really fun. I guess what I'm getting at is my career has directly benefited from the volunteer work that I've done, from where I've put into, of myself and of my time into projects that have helped other people. And a lot of people will talk to you about, how to really, maximise your career and how to promote yourself and how to make sure you get the best amount of pay and how, people will talk to you a lot about how to improve your career prospects. I would put to you that you will get a really great career and really satisfying career by looking slightly outside of the traditional career sort of approaches. So one thing is to experiment. When I was at school, I was desperate to become a vet. How many people think they want to be a vet? Any? I went and did work experience, and that turned that off pretty quick. When I had to help, deliver the first calf, it was just like, nah, I'm totally not going to become a vet. Experimentation is critical because it's how you determine whether you'd like to do something or not. And along that same line, you don't want to sort of throw good time after bad. So I have a friend that decided that she wanted to become a pharmacist. So she started at uni and didn't really like it, but she completed the degree. And then she started working in it, didn't really like it, but she thought, well, I'm not a quitter, so then she kept doing it. She basically followed that career path for 7 years before she went, I really don't want to be a pharmacist. Now, she'd known that year one, right? But she had all this pressure on her to not quit and to not change and all the rest of it. And because of that pressure, she ended up not being able to follow what she really wanted to do for 7 years. So along the same path of experimenting, if you find that you don't like something, don't be afraid to change your mind. I think that's a fairly important thing to say. She ended up, by the way, becoming a very good and very well-known journalist for the ABC, so that was quite a good outcome for her. Build your portfolio. When people ask you what you've done, a lot of people will ask for, it depends on the sector, but they'll ask for different things. But if you can show how you've put your spare time and your passion into the thing that you want to show off, then that's a great thing. Obviously in IT, if you want to be a web developer and someone says, well, where's your portfolio? You can say, well, here's the website I built for my local school or for my soccer club or for my, netball or whatever. If you can show stuff that you've done, even if it's on your spare time, then that helps build your portfolio. I think challenging the status quo is a big one. A lot of people you will meet will say, here's how you do this job. And you should be able to look at it critically and say, but can't I do it better? And that will freak them out. Don't get me wrong. I freak people out every day. But it also means you'll be able to improve things. If you're not actually doing it better, then you're just part of the machine. And I always like to be the person that makes a better machine rather than just being a cog in someone else's machine. But that's just me. Through that experimentation, through getting rid of stuff that you don't like, through some of these approaches, you should be able to figure out what you love, or at least what you really like. And then you also should be able to figure out what you're good at. I've always had this thing about wanting to help people. I could go and try to serve, soup in a soup kitchen, but I'm a terrible cook. It wouldn't help anybody, actually, for me to go and do that. So how do I apply my skills? How do I apply what I'm good at to do what I'm trying to do, which is what I'm trying to achieve, which is, in my case, to help people. And in my case, I'm a geek. So how can I build great technologies or great systems or great, processes or whatever to actually achieve that? So figure out what you're good at, then apply that. There's a thing here. How many people here would... I know this isn't all geeks. I know that I'm one of the few. But how many of you guys would, classify yourself as a techie or a geek or a little bit nerdy? Not many? How many people would classify yourself as technology literate? The ones without your hands up, are you kidding? You guys are the most tech literate, of any generation that's ever come before. How many of you, know technology better than your dad? Yeah, I would hope so, right? The point is, you guys are more technically skilled than anyone that's come before. And if you think the word technology or geek is a scary word, well, you better get with the program. It's become a little bit sexy these days, you may have noticed. But in any industry that you're in, right? It's the geeks. It's the people that can apply technology in new creative ways that will make a difference. So embrace that. Play with it. Pick up this stuff and do cool stuff with it, and you'll make your mark and you'll be able to make a difference. I guess one of the final things I'll say is that and again, sorry, I'm actually really unwell. People will sometimes underestimate you, right? And this is just life. People will always underestimate you, particularly when you're trying to do new and interesting things. And the key thing is that so long as you're doing what you love and you're doing it really well and you're running rings around them anyway because you're heaps better at them than they are, then, who cares? Have fun, enjoy yourself, and live up to your own personal standard. Figure out what success means to you and then achieve that success. Nothing else really matters. One of my biggest bugbears is when people, you see them in the lift at work and they say, oh, it's only Wednesday, it's hump day, I can't believe there's 2 more days of work before the weekend. If you spend 5/7 of your life, as in Monday to Friday, waiting for the other 2/7 of your life, you are wasting time. You are wasting so much time. Figure out how to enjoy every day of your life and then you'll lead a full and fun and satisfying life. Don't waste it. So find what you love, do what you love. You'll do it more awesome than most people around you as a natural consequence, which means you'll be more successful, which means you'll have an awesome career, whatever that means to you, and overall have fun. I'm going to finish with a quote. The previous speaker had some wonderful quotes. I don't listen to any of that sort of music, though, I'm afraid. So I'm going to quote Rage Against the Machine. What better place than here? What better time than now? You guys are so well set up. Surround yourself by greatness. Find opportunities, experiment, play, have fun. Thank you.
Here for a second. Thank you so much.
I can stay now.
Stay? Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Pia. I originally thought that Pia had to leave early, but we're going to be lucky enough to have her with us for our Q&A session. So I'll introduce our next speaker now. We are very lucky to have Sally Moylan with us today. Sally is one of Australia's leading cricketers. She plays with the WNCL with the ACT Meteors. She's also a full-time horticulturalist for the Parks and Presentations team within TAMS here in Canberra, and was recently listed as one of Her Canberra's 15 Women to Watch in 2015. In 2014, she was also named the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Student of the Year. So please welcome Sally.
Thanks, Sue. Now, I'm pretty nervous up here. Does anyone want to swap? Nah. I would just like to thank YWCA for inviting me to speak here today at this year's She Leads College Conference. It's a huge honour, not only to share the stage, but to share the room here today with so many inspiring young women and future leaders. It wasn't all that long ago where I was actually sitting where you guys, or you girls are sitting now, and here I am. Who would have thought? A guest speaker. Geez, I wouldn't have. But what excites me most about this conference is being able to walk out these doors and look around and see so many of you walking out, hopefully being inspired to do what Y is all about and break barriers and stereotypes and just smash them out of the park and do the right thing and be a good positive role model for women. Now for me, being a leader isn't about being a captain on a cricket field or being in an actual formal leadership role. It's about making positive choices. It's about having the confidence to lead a life that you want and setting out to achieve the things that you've always wanted to do. For others, it might be being the CEO of a corporate company, being a director, scientist, an activist, anything you want. If you love it and if it's what you want to do, then in my eyes, you're a leader as well. Now, I choose to lead a life studying and continuing to learn not only about myself but other people as well. Working as a horticulturalist in the trade industry, playing professional cricket and exploring nature and helping others. These are all things that I love, and in saying that, I've achieved so much in the last 12 months than I ever have. Doors are opening before I get the chance to knock, and it's kind of scary, but at the same time it's exciting. Now I wear a lot of heels these days, so I don't have to focus on my calves at the gym, which is pretty good. It's also, I'm really excited, and I cannot wait for the new opportunities and to grow and to help create change for the better. Now for me, growing up as the youngest of 4 kids in Wellington, in a country town of 5,000 people, is where I think I kick-started my journey as becoming a leader. I was headstrong, determined, driven, an adventurous girl, or as my parents would call me, a wild child. I learned a skill early on, and that skill was to observe. I learned to observe my surroundings from a very young age. I watched and took in as much as I could, and it's definitely a skill that has helped me throughout my life to date. So like many small country towns, it can have limited opportunities and challenges within itself. Now, I was exposed to things and made aware of things that most haven't growing up. Things like seeing people suffering from drug and alcohol abuse, suicide, seeing those less fortunate than myself not having the same support and care as I did. Many of my close friends, unfortunately, went down that path. For me, the choice was clear. As headstrong as determined as I was, I made the decision not to continue down that very same path, but to tread my own and not get caught up in that vicious cycle. I put all of my energy into playing sport, and cricket in particular. It helped shape me who I am and kept me focused for the most part. and I believe it's probably one of the main reasons that kept me in school. Now, I'll take you back to 2006. It's when I finished high school. I was one of 30 of the students that finished that year, which is less than half of my fellow peers that started back with me in Year 7, which goes on to be one of the many reasons that fuels my passion to help others believe in themselves. Although it wasn't all smooth sailing, because there I was, the chick that went to school to play cricket, now with no more school. You could say I felt a little lost, and I was a little bit worried, mainly because at the time the perceptions and expectations put on us once we finished high school was either to go to university, or the next step was go to university, to get a job locally, settle down and start a family, or move away. Now, these were all decisions that I didn't really think of or put much thought into. I didn't really know what I wanted to do or study at university, nor did I want to settle down. And the scariest part of moving to Sydney, well, coming from a 5,000 population town, no way. But like all I always try and do, I remained positive and knew that things would fall into place. So what did I do? I found myself a job, probably not the best one, but it was gutting turkeys. I can't eat turkey today. I ended up working for 9 months. I saved 12 grand. And with that 12 grand, I set off over to Europe and I backpacked, to my parents' dismay. They didn't really like that thought of travelling by myself, being a female. But it's probably one of the best choices I've ever made. And a choice that I will never change, as I came home with a whole new perspective on life. While travelling, I met so many different types of people from diverse backgrounds and cultures that I've only seen on TV. I learned how to be more compassionate. It gave me a better understanding not only of myself, but understanding others. It changed me forever. And I dug up a deep passion I had for Mother Nature and her environment and how it made me feel. On my return, my passion for living a life that I always wanted grew stronger. So I set off to Sydney and to chase a professional cricket career. Eventually moving to Canberra 5 years ago. Now, upon moving to Canberra, I can't say it was a smooth transition, because the day I moved here, I played soccer. In the first 5 minutes, I tore my ACL. It's your main ligament in your right knee. Now, for me, I didn't know anyone, I wasn't settled in. It was literally the day I moved here. So I unpacked, took off, and went and played soccer. Now, the staff at Cricket ACT, the doctors, all those people said surgery and 12 months out. But I had other thoughts. As I'll take you back, I'm pretty determined and driven. So I set some goals and to prove these guys wrong. I got back within 5 months. And it's a living proof that if you can set your goals and chase whatever you set out to achieve at the start, anything's possible. Once I found my feet, or in my case, knee, I received a letter from the Australian Cricket Association. Now, they had study grants that put on offer. Some say it was luck, but I reckon it was the universe saying this is for staying positive. It took all my courage and a lot of confidence to step outside my comfort zone, but after much thought, I jumped at the opportunity because I didn't know whether it was going to come around again. At the time, I was working as a landscaper, so having a passion for the trade industry and nature, I combined the two and chose to study horticulture, conservation and land management at CIT. Now, with persistence and a love for what I was doing, I learned how to manage my time and how to share it equally between all other aspects of my life. I soon gained a job working for the government at Parks and City Services. This was a major turning point in my work career and one that has given me endless opportunities. And in spite of the challenges that come with the stereotypes and negative messages like she's a girl, she can't do that, which so often comes with being a female wanting to work in a male-dominant field. But that doesn't stop me. My passion for horticulture, combined with the confidence that I have within myself, knowing I have what it takes to be there. I pushed through those barriers and I still continue to smash them down today. I'm no longer the chick working on the bobcat. I'm the chick they're all worried about taking their jobs. So they should. I'm good at what I do and I love it. In saying that, it only took me a year to gain a permanent full-time position. And it's definitely challenges like that which help motivate me to take up the opportunity to mentor young women apprentices who are entering the trade industry within my own workforce. It gives me the opportunity to support and encourage women to be just as confident and as courageous to break down those very same barriers I have so that they can keep doing what they love. Not long after settling into my new role at work, I graduated my horticultural qualification, and much to my surprise, one of my teachers handed me a nomination form for the ACT Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Student of the Year. As she thought I was a great candidate, so she asked me if I would like to be nominated. Initially, I wasn't interested at all. I've never been that person to highlight things that I do. I've always flown under the radar. But while reading it and learning what it was about, and if I did win it, what I could do with it, I jumped at it. Because the only thing that I could think of at that time when I read that paper was, what happens if I do win it? Like, what's the opportunities that I could get is to be like here today. I could stand up and tell my story and hopefully inspire those that are questioning themselves or they're too scared to go out and do what it is they've always wanted to do. So that was a major reason why I went for it. So I ended up applying. I won the ACT category, and then I went on to win the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Student of the Year award as well, down in Adelaide. It's one of my proudest moments of my life, not only to be recognised for my achievements, but to be able to stand up there and represent my people as a whole and share my journey and all of the successes that came with it. But with saying that, I have failed many times and have experienced some tough losses. Though I've doubted myself time and time again, and I know you all will here today as well. Though if you choose to accept that sometimes things change and follow my lead to try and see things in a positive light, it will then generate a positive feeling, which then generates a positive life experience. Which leads into why I've just recently made one of the most difficult decisions I have ever faced yet. I have decided to take 12 months off cricket. Something that has been a major part of my life to date. And it's probably the reason why I got out of Wellington, to be honest. Though, like all tough decisions I make, I try to go in with a positive attitude. No doubt I'll miss it, though I trust my decision, and what excites me more is that new doors are opening. And I'm entering into a world where I can hopefully make more of a difference in the community rather than on a sporting field. I hope to utilise my 12 months off to follow my passion and to help in helping others with volunteering and mentoring young Indigenous and disadvantaged kids here in Canberra. As I'll go over the quote here, as Sam Keane once said, "Soul grows in communion, word by word, story by story. For better or for worse, we build our world. From true conversation, speaking and listening, communication deepens into compassion, and compassion creates community." Something I believe that could have helped influence more of my Year 7 class to dream big. Now, I won't lie, I'm nervous, but who wouldn't be? I'm stepping outside my sporting world and into an unknown, and as much as that frightens me, my passion for helping people drives me further. And I have no doubt in my mind that after today's workshops and conference that you all will continue to lead a positive change for women in whatever it is you choose to do in your own life. And just remember, the best way to succeed in your own life is to be yourself, to be proud of who you are and own it. Discover what it is that you love Find a way to show others that passion. Work hard, stay true to yourself, and strive to be the best person you can be. Don't just simply exist. Get out and live, explore, challenge yourself, evolve, change, and never give up on yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sally. That was really inspiring. So finally, we're going to be hearing from Hayley Collins and Ash Grogan from Young Vagabond, who you've already had a chance to meet in your workshops today. Hayley and Ash are co-founders of Young Vagabond, which, as you know, is a unique, inspiring and innovative magazine and company that empowers young women and advocates for gender equality. So we're going to hear from Hayley first. Please welcome Hayley.
Hey guys, by now most of you would know something about Young Vagabond, but I'll do, I guess, a quick overview of how it is the company kind of came to be and how Ash and I met. It was probably about 4 years ago now. We joke that we're each other's longest term relationship. We met at work in a small company down on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, where we both grew up. And it was a great company in many ways, but being a small company and it was actually an all-female company as well, Ash and I found that we were sort of the only two people in the company, or Ash was the only person in the company that I felt I could relate to, and that we shared a lot of values and a lot of opinions, and often to disagree with a lot of other people within the company. And so oftentimes things would be said that we perhaps felt were inappropriate or a bit narrow-minded, and although we weren't necessarily friends at that stage, we were the ones that kind of backed each other up in pulling people up on their behaviour. And this kind of evolved into a friendship based on shared values, and we sort of discovered, I guess, feminism around the same time, and had these journeys that ran parallel, where we were making these discoveries about the issues that women face together, and being able to explore those things together and question them as well. And a big part of that journey was the online community. Feminism, particularly kind of, I guess, pertinent to the points you made about technology, feminism is something that we really found online, and found support from other women online, and found information about young women's issues through social media. And that was how we got a lot of our initial learnings about these issues that we came to be really passionate about. But after probably 6 months or so, we found that we were both in quite a negative space with it all, and found that we were kind of complaining a lot to each other, and had fallen into that trap of being really mad a lot of the time, and not thinking innovatively about how we could make some kind of positive difference. And it was something that we had noticed online as well, that there were lots of complaints being made, but no real solutions ever being suggested. So we decided to take our sort of, I guess, negative feelings about it all and try and create something positive out of it. And that's where the concept of Young Vagabond came from. It was our little slice of positivity to try and empower young women like ourselves, and hopefully negate some of the negativity that we saw around us that often came from places like the media. The first edition of Young Vagabond launched 2 years ago now. Since then, the company's continued to grow. We've had some amazing support and opportunities from lots of different areas that we didn't necessarily expect, from various non-profit organisations like the Butterfly Foundation, through to big companies, and in our first year of business, Ash and I were very fortunate to get to attend the Young Entrepreneurs Alliance G20 Summit in Moscow, which was quite ridiculous because we had no idea about business at that stage. But it was, it showed that people believed in what we were doing, which was very encouraging. My own leadership story is not traditional in any sense. Being at events like this is so exciting for me, but also quite overwhelming, because when I was at high school, I was not the kind of student that would have put my hand up to attend something like this, or would have been put forward by my teachers to attend anything to do with leadership. I guess I'm probably what you would have called the underdog, and it was a role that I was quite happy to sort of embody at the time. It meant that I got into confrontations quite regularly with other students. It didn't really bother me at the time because I think the connotations for me in being an underdog or a rebel were really about fighting for something that you believe in and standing for something. And to me, that was a form of leadership. I've never really thought that leadership is kind of one thing and that there's only one way to do it. So for me, it was really just about fighting to be able to be myself without having to justify that to anyone, and hoping that that would set a good example. And it often actually did set enough of an example to then go and inspire other people to feel like they had license to be themselves too without needing to justify it. It wasn't always a good example. As I mentioned, I was pretty rebellious. I was very lazy with school. I didn't use that experience as much as I probably should have. And kind of that laziness combined with a long string of crappy relationships that if anyone was in my workshop, you kind of would have heard a little bit about, meant that I didn't really take advantage of the opportunity to go to university, and I didn't really think about that stage of my life very closely because I was so focused on like what kind of girlfriend I was and making my boyfriends happy. Not all at the same time, they were separate relationships. So I didn't go to university, and something that I kind of, for a while, had a few regrets around because I think that it would have been a great time to do it, when all my peers were doing it and all my friends were. But I had other experiences instead that were very steep learning curves for me. My first foray into any kind of real leadership was when I entered the workforce. And it became very clear to me that society's idea of leadership was kind of in line with my school's idea of leadership. And it was about kind of being a team player and being able to delegate and potentially give orders. And these weren't things that came naturally to me just because I had very little interest in being that type of person. And I was so only really concerned in being myself and being comfortable with myself. So my first foray into leadership was as a retail manager in fashion retail. Which was an interesting experience. I was managing quite a large team, and I was trying to do so in the same way that I had attempted to be a leader in high school, by trying to set a good example and assuming that people would then be able to follow that example. It didn't exactly go to plan. After being in the job for, maybe 6 months or so, I got a call from the area manager one day who told me that there'd been some losses recorded from the store, like where stock had gone missing and small amounts of money, and they had a feeling that it might have been staff. And I ferociously defended my team, and I told them that that was ridiculous. I knew the staff well, they would never do that. These girls were people I was friends with, and I trusted them. And I found out sometime later that actually not only had they been stealing clothes from right out under my nose, they'd been stealing money from the company, they'd been coming to work and taking drugs in the back room, and then going out and doing their jobs while high. So that was kind of the beginning of the end of my time with the company, because even though I wasn't the one doing those things, obviously that lack of trust then transferred onto me. And so that whole idea of being a good example didn't really apply in that situation. It was, I should have been more adaptive, or I could have been more adaptive, and recognise that some teams maybe do need a bit more of a firm type of leadership. So yes, that was the beginning of the end there. It resulted in me being transferred to another store, and this is probably a good lesson in staying true to yourself. I got transferred to another store where they tried to phase me out of the company by having a 3-month review with me where they told me that I dressed too sexy and it was not acceptable. Now, the irony of this for anyone who has ever worked in fashion retail is that the clothes I was wearing were sold by the store and came from a very narrow list of what I could wear as a uniform week to week. So I was literally wearing the same stuff as every other person in the store. And basically got shamed into resigning. So very steep learning curve, lots of lessons came out of it about leadership and about, being myself and being okay with that and not feeling bad about it and not feeling like I needed to justify it. But needless to say, it did sort of put me off putting myself forward for roles like that for quite a while. So I had probably a good 5 years of just drifting to different jobs and, not really knowing what I wanted to do. I had lots of grand ideas, but I think, as you guys are probably in the process of finding out, when you're trying to build your life from scratch, there's no right way to do it, and figuring that out is like quite a tricky process. So I had lots of years of floating before I did kind of discover issues that women face, and met Ash, and we kind of discovered that stuff together, as I mentioned. And so once we founded Young Vagabond in early 2013, I kind of got another shot at the leadership thing. And I think because I was starting something from scratch that allowed me to stand for something, I was really passionate about what we were doing. And it's something that I can do every day and not ever get tired of. So leadership has never been traditional for me because I'm still not really a team player, and I don't really like giving orders, and I'm not that good at delegating. For me, leading is quite insular, and it's quite a self-centered process because it involves developing my thoughts and opinions on different things, and in the case of Young Vagabond, taking the time to communicate my ideas on things effectively to a wide audience, whether it's through articles online or through the magazine. And I think that that's another way to be a leader. It doesn't necessarily have to be, being really extroverted or overly confident or, good at all these team building exercises, which are fantastic, but, you can lead in lots of different ways. For me, it's just about finding something that I'm passionate about. And for me, there's lots of things I'm passionate about, so I'm very fortunate in that, and being able to stand behind it. I'm still learning how to be kind of adaptive enough to lead different types of people. As I mentioned with the whole incident of being a retail manager, as much as I'm all about trying to be myself, there are times where you do need to sort of change your leadership style to meet the people that you are working with. So sometimes now, although it comes more naturally to me to sort of take care of my own business and work autonomously and be credited for my own work, and I guess, for lack of a better term, be a bit of like lone wolf, and people are generally kind of chasing me for replies to emails because I'm stuck in my own head coming up with ideas for things. One of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn, and that has done me very well in what we've been able to do with Young Vagabond, has been the observation of other people and being able to see how people work and adapt myself to work with them. It means that I've been able to push myself outside of my comfort zone a lot more. So sometimes now, even though it doesn't come naturally, I can be part of a team. I'm a bit of a team player now. I can brief projects in and hand those over to other people, and often, and this probably comes a bit more naturally to me, I am the person who stands up in a boardroom and tells someone that they're wrong or that I don't agree with them. And that comes from being secure in my sense of self. At the end of the day, I think finding out what I believe in has meant that a lot of other things were able to fall into place, and adapting as a leader isn't so difficult when you have the benefit of being yourself. And I think that that's something that we continue to be able to see through the work we do with Young Vagabond. We were all so thrilled with being able to meet all of you today, and you all had so many amazing things to say and contribute. And I think that if you guys can take anything that we kind of covered today, either from Ash and I speaking or from the workshops, then that hopefully means that we're doing our jobs as leaders either directly or indirectly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hayley. I'll now introduce Ash. Yeah, you can just tilt this one up, actually.
Thank you.
All
I feel
right.
a little bit out of place. You're all really amazing, and now I have to finish. Pressure. Okay. So Hayley did the background of Young Vagabond, which makes it really easy for me, so I can just jump into my leadership journey. I always sort of in these situations feel a bit of pressure to sound like the perfect kind of leader. When talking at events like this, it's really amazing, and although my leadership journey isn't ideal, it was the perfect one for me, so just bear with me because I think it'll get there in the end. When I was younger, I did take more of a traditional leadership journey. This wasn't because I chose it, it was because I was kind of forced into it. I had a few teachers who always saw my potential and sort of pushed me into these positions. And my mum's a bit of a hoarder, so she has all of my reports from like primary school through to high school. And it always says, Ashley's got great potential. If only she could focus, everything would be fine. And I think their way of trying to fix that for me was to push me into these situations. So things like representing the school or leading groups in class, being house captain or sports captains, even putting me in situations like when I was with groups of friends, if they were acting out, they wouldn't get pulled aside, I would get pulled aside, and they'd be like, you know better than this, you should be a better example. And that's where they were putting me into these leadership positions that were always sort of just uncomfortable for me. I always had this sense of discomfort in them. When I was 15, I was offered a spot at the Alpine School in Victoria. So they select 45 students per term, and you all from all over Victoria come together and live for 9 weeks together in the snow, which was pretty amazing. And it didn't focus on leadership in the traditional sense that I knew it. It focused on things like how to best learn to communicate, or things about conflict resolution, or how my brain works so I can learn in a way that I will have the best outcomes. It was here as well that I got to spend weeks on projects that I was passionate about, and I got to learn how to focus on the things I cared about, which was really amazing. We also spent an hour each day reflecting on what we had done, and at the time I hated it. Like, I had to sit in silence with 45 other kids writing in a journal, and I just thought I was better than it because I was 15 and it was stupid. But I then have found since being an adult that time for reflection is really important. In that time as well, I was, they take your phone off you and you have to communicate with people via letter, which is pretty cute looking back. And I used to write letters to my friends, and they would write letters back, but they would always write, I didn't think it was bad at the time, but now I realise it's pretty awful. They used to draw comics about me being an overachiever and going to like my nerd school and my nerd camps. So I had this really beautiful experience, and then I came out of it never talking about it, about the people I met or the things I did, because everyone would just make fun of me for stepping out and doing something a little different, even if I was being pushed into the position. So I guess what I'm trying to say in that is that I didn't appreciate or make the most of the opportunities that were given to me because I didn't sort of think they suited me, or it didn't fit the mould that I thought I had to be. I mean, in these past few years with Young Vagabond, I really noticed how much of an impact that school had on me, and how it has influenced who I am today and the kind of leader that I identify as. The traditional stuff has come in handy, and when I say the traditional stuff, I mean the way I thought I was supposed to be a leader, like standing up in front of you all and talking now, and being at the forefront of a cause, or just representing a group of people. And I find that's helped me in my real world job. I work as a business analyst. It has helped me with YV, but it's you can probably see my hands are shaking. It's not my comfort zone as a leader. There's other things that I like to do that fit my style of leadership. So not loving this perfect kind of leadership, although it's helped, it's terrifying, but it's worked out for me. I knew then from all my experiences what it feels like to be pushed into something or to be moulded into something, and I also know what it's like to decide that I'm going to reject that and decide what works for me. So, for example, when it came to university, again, I was terrified. There was this expectation going through school that you just pick your subjects in year 10 and then you go to university and you get a job and everything's fine. But I never wanted to do university. It was never a dream of mine, and no one ever spoke to me about what I can do if that traditional education system didn't suit me. So, much to Hayley's displeasure, I have the attention span of about a 5-year-old, and I have to write everything down because otherwise I just go off in different directions. So, university wasn't for me, school wasn't for me, and I just think that even though I tried a bunch of different uni courses, like I've dropped out of 4. Eventually, every couple of years, I'm like, maybe I'll try this. No, not for me. I just stopped doing them because it didn't make me happy, and that was the most important thing for me. So even though all of that stuff has happened, I'm doing okay. I'm 25, I'm a business analyst, Young Vagabond's doing pretty amazingly. And it was from these lessons that have helped me do that, going off the path or not fitting into it perfectly. If I did stay at uni, I'd probably still be there trying to finish a degree, dragging my feet, which is pretty good. I'm not there. I'd say this need to stay true to myself and my inability to focus are actually my best assets though. It means I never settle and I'm always looking for new opportunities. I have to find something that I'll focus on, otherwise I just won't do it because I know it's a waste of time. Rejecting all of the pressures to be a particular way is what has led me to be an effective leader when it comes to leading change with Young Vagabond and focusing on empowering young women to just really do what they believe in. I sometimes have to check myself and remember that leadership isn't just doing this stuff, and there's other ways that I can be a really effective leader. In the end, for me, it's just a word and you can kind of make it whatever you want. It was only recently that I was comfortable calling myself a leader. I never used the word, but it was because I discovered my own definition, and my own definition is that I am a leader of change, a leader who supports the people around me however they need it, a leader who steps up when necessary, and a leader that does what it takes to make a positive and lasting impact on the world. My leadership is about what I can do, not about what I can be seen doing. And that's allowed me to get where I am today and will support me for years to come. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. I've been really inspired by all of our speakers today, so I'm absolutely itching to get into the Q&A. But before we move on, I'm going to briefly invite Frances Crimmins, Executive Director of YWCA Canberra, to the stage. So please make Frances welcome.
Thank you. I've just got the job of handing out some thank you presents right now. So if somebody could hand me one of the presents. I just want to explain one of the gifts that we're giving people today. This is called a YWCA Stirrer Spoon. And for those of you who aren't aware, YWCA have been in Australia for over 150 years. And this spoon has a story from a life member, Beth, who was an amazing woman, passed away 2 years ago at age 94, and I can tell you she was still stirring the pot. When we were packing up, when Beth's family was packing up her YWCA things from her life, we came across this stirrer spoon that in her movement in the 1950s, they were trying to break down gender stereotypes then around women cooking in the kitchen. So we wanted to bring back this in the context of YWCA today, in that, yes, I don't personally bake. I know Zoya loves baking.
Sorry.
but that in recognition to Beth, that we would like to encourage all of the women here to keep stirring that pot, keep up the good fight, and keep flying the flag. So that's I just felt you would need to know the story behind that particular gift. I know you'll have to race off, so please quickly come back up. Heather, some of our earlier speakers. Pia. Yes, that's Pia. Sally.
I don't like pink.
Oh, sorry. Didn't choose the bags. Sorry, you've got...
Yeah, last time I saw one of those wooden spoons, I got smacked with it.
You got smacked with it? Yeah, my grandmother used to use one of those.
I've broken
as well.
a few, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carly. Thank you. I'm going to have to think of a song, I realise, as I'm closing. I'll have to think of my own quote to close with out of my favourite songs. Thank you. Ash.
This one's Hayley.
Chelsea. Yes,
Rachel
need to come up to the front.
That's Chelsea and that's Rachel.
This one's Chelsea's. I'm messing them all up. Is this one Hayley's? Hayley's. Oh God, it's awkward now. And Rachel, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Fran. So, before we head into our Q&A, we're going to have a really quick break. So seriously, 5 minutes, just an opportunity to stretch your legs, go to the bathroom, grab some fruit that's out there, which you can bring back in. And we will be back here at I can't do the maths, 10 to 3, 10 to 3, come back here. All right, so feel free to go have your break now. Can't even read the time. What's the time?
Because my elder sister, she's 9 years older than me. So I reckon 26. But I got
6 a dog, which means I'm actually not leaving.
I might go and fill up that water jug. No, that should work alright, shouldn't it?
Sorry,
too excited.
Get yourself a volunteer. All right, we're going to get started pretty soon. So if you're not sitting down, probably grab a seat now. Oh, yep. We'll wait a little bit longer. Just rounding up our last speaker, but do start thinking, yeah, that's fine. Do start thinking about your questions. While we're waiting for Sally to come back up on stage, I'm just going to explain a bit about how the Q&A will work today. So we really want you guys to, ask your own questions and make the most of the opportunity to pick the brains of these amazing ladies up here. So what we've got is a microphone set up over there to my right. As you think of a question, if you could come and line up at the microphone, and I'll go to you when we're ready. So feel free to just make an orderly queue, and I'll cross over to the microphone as often as I can. I'm going to kick off with a couple of questions to start with. So ladies, I noticed that all of us seem to have a little bit of a reticence about using the word leader about ourselves. Just realised that you don't have a mic. I'll draw my question out really slowly while we get a mic for you. So obviously we all feel a little bit uncomfortable with using the word leader about ourselves. And that seems to be something that women deal with more than men, in my view. So I guess I'm wondering, for you guys, why do you feel uncomfortable with the word leader? And do you think that it does come from maybe a bit of imposter syndrome, not feeling as if you can ever really own that word because you're worried that people will say, you're not a leader, you haven't done enough? What do you think, Carly?
Yeah, so I was just talking with Pia, and we're both government employees, and I wrote a blog post recently about how I really struggle with being a leader in my diversity community and not being a leader in my day job. And because of the hierarchy of the government, it's so hard. So there's times when I'm being published on the front page of The Age or Canberra Times for You, and I'm doing a really shit job at work and not getting a thank you for it. And I feel like, wow, don't you know my capability? Don't you know what I can do? I'm much more than this. And I really struggle with that, whereas outside I'm getting all these accolades and I got told that I'm too passionate and that will be a detriment to my day job. And that just shuts down my idea of being a leader immediately.
It's definitely not a criticism you expect to get. Stop
Not at all.
loving what you do. Yeah. Be less
Not at all.
passionate.
So it's really hard.
Do you feel similarly, Hayley? I know that you were talking about how you don't seem to put that label on yourself very easily.
I don't think it's necessarily an issue that I have with the label of being a leader. I just don't. I think that we look at leadership in a very narrow way as a society, and I don't fit into that narrow definition. So if people call me a leader, I'm probably not going to say, no, I'm not. But I think I can't speak for other women, but I do think that part of it is that thing where even if you think you might be good at something, you'd rather just try and sound modest about it because then at least you don't sound arrogant. And I'm happy to say that I'm a leader, but I'm probably not going to, put it in my Twitter bio because I feel like that's just asking for criticism, and I'd rather just be modest about it to kind of escape the criticism. It's not that I don't think I'm capable of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Pia?
I think leading by example is one thing that people just do, men and women. And I think anyone in any capacity can just do what they're doing amazingly well, and thus that becomes the example. So it's the whole, Gandhi thing, be the change you want to see sort of thing. I think then to be a more visible leader is a different thing. So I identified when I was much younger that, and this is about, again, figuring out your skills, figuring out what you're good at. I am one of the world's natural cheerleaders. I'm very good at getting up and rallying people around something and getting them enthused and that kind of thing. So that's what I'm good at. So number one, I sort of went, well, if that's something I'm good at, that's probably something I should do. And the second thing was, in my field, there's a lot of people that get up and talk who don't know what they're talking about. So I actually saw it as an obligation to get up and to lead from the front a little bit and to own some of that public narrative a little bit, not because I know it all, but because I know what I know and I can talk about what I know with some authority, but also that I can refer to other people that know what they know rather than people who don't know anything getting up and taking the limelight for everything. So for me, I'm not uncomfortable at all with the concept of being a leader, but I am aware that in Australia as a culture, I don't think this is a female thing, I think this is an Australian thing. We have a tall poppy syndrome. If you get up, and on top of the mountain, then people tend to, you talk yourself down. You've got to be humble. You've got to be proving what you're talking about all the time, not just talking. So there's talkers and walkers, and I'd far prefer to be a walker than a talker.
Yeah, well said. I was wondering also, we've talked a lot about the challenges that we've faced as leaders and some of the things that might have, held us back or that we've had to overcome. But I'm wondering, what were some of the unexpected, good things that have happened in your leadership journeys? What are some of the things that you didn't expect to be so easy, or, have you gotten help from an unexpected area? This one looks like a tricky one. But, maybe Sally, do you have anything you'd like to kick us off with?
Yeah, I'd probably go back to when I started working for the government with Parks and City Services. I just doing what I was doing, and obviously people in a higher position sort of saw what I was doing, and I'd only been working there for about 8 months, and they pretty much gave me a permanent job. And there was other people sort of working there for 4 years that were looking for a permanent job, but obviously they could see sort of some of the stuff that I was doing, but also what I sort of come down to is as the challenge of not just being a number, as in, or a quota, but the challenge of just coming out and just trying to break down those barriers, what the guys perceived me as not being able to do. So,
yeah, and it sounds as if you've definitely been helping to pave the way for kind of future women who are coming into that industry as well. So in a way, you're making it a lot easier for, generations to come of leaders.
Yeah, definitely, and that's something that sort of I'm passionate about too. Like, I've just moved over into a new area just recently, and there's actually a lot more females in parks and presentation, and just myself, like having the experience and the confidence to jump on a tractor or on a bobcat, and I've noticed, and a few of the guys have sort of said the changes in some of the other girls, as they've seen me sort of lead that way, so they've had the confidence to get on the backhoe and things like that. There's something that they probably wouldn't have done because the guys probably never sort of supported them in that way.
Definitely goes to the power of role models. Before I ask the next question, did anyone in the audience have a... Yeah, absolutely, Peter. Maybe pass that along the row. If you do have a question, please do consider coming and lining up over here.
I guess just a couple of quick unexpected things that have contributed. First one is martial arts. And I'm sure Joe will enjoy that I'm bringing this up. I've done martial arts since I was 11, karate, and I've done kung fu for most of that time. And what martial arts have done has been amazing because it's helped with my self-confidence, it's helped with my understanding of myself. It's very hard to engage in a situation and make a difference, like make a real difference if you don't know who you are. So martial arts helps me figure out who I am. It helps you know your environment. Again, you need to know the situation you're in order to make a difference. And it's really helped me understand how to not allow the rules to define me, but rather how to rewrite the rules in my favour. And I think that's a big one because we tend to sort of look at life and go, well, what does life tell me I need to do? What do other people tell me I need to do? What does the system say? But actually you can rewrite all of that. You can actually define your own little box, call it the alternative box, and be whatever you want. You don't have to be what someone else defines you to be. And the second one is, I was going to say chess. Chess helps you with the rewriting rules too. But the third thing is actually critical thinking. Out of all of the different studies I've done over the years, there was one semester subject I did at uni called critical thinking. It was brilliant because it just helps you break down any problem into a series of things that you can fix, that you can actually do something about. Because sometimes a problem looks insurmountable. Being able to actually have a scientific approach to making a difference is really important. So I'd also suggest even if you just check out critical thinking sort of studies online, it's very, very helpful. Martial arts, critical thinking and chess. There you go.
That's great. I think Carly had something that she wanted to add.
I really recommend going and meeting as many people as you can.
Yeah.
I connect online with so many people, and I might just read something by someone and say, I really liked your article today, or in a room I sort of have this theory that I want to make myself known to those who should know me, and I'll go and introduce myself to them and give them my card, even if it looks a bit try hard. I want to keep in touch with them, and I met amazing people that way.
Surround yourself with greatness.
Did either of you have anything you'd like to add, and then we might go to our first audience question?
I'll just quickly add to Carly's point, and it's something we covered in the workshops, particularly in the space that Ash and I are in, finding your girl gang. And it's become such a buzzwordy thing to say, particularly on social media, and I use the hashtag in every Young Vagabond Instagram post. But it's been really rewarding for us. It can be a really tough space when we're campaigning for women's equality and women's rights, and that often attracts people who are purposely trying to tear down your mission. And so finding like-minded women who you can kind of just be with and...
Men, surely, and men.
Yeah. Probably not for our space, to be honest, no. We have men that are in our lives, but for the space that we're in, it's been about finding solidarity amongst women. So yeah, it's just been something that's been really helpful for us, and some of the best times we've had have been when we've been able to come together and kind of bounce off each other and not have to worry about defending what we believe in.
Never had a girl gang.
You can join our girl gang.
I actually like having a multicultural.
I think we're creating a girl gang right here today, which is fantastic. I'm going to go to our first audience question. If you'd just like to come up to the mic.
I just had a question for Ashley and Hayley. What does Young Vagabond mean? What's the name mean?
Vagabond is sort of like a recluse, so someone who's gone off the beaten track or something like that. And so for young women especially, we feel like the journey is, finding your way. And it's also had a couple of negative connotations, which we liked. We wanted to reclaim vagabond as a cool word, and Young Vagabond sounds like a female superhero, so we're happy calling ourselves that.
That's fantastic. So I was also wondering, while we're talking about, owning our careers and being leaders in a self-empowered way, we all seem to do a lot. You guys have all talked about doing multiple different things, wearing lots of different hats. Ash, you were saying earlier that you're a business analyst, which sounds like one of those, big scary jobs. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about how you manage your priorities, or how you juggle all the different things that you do.
I don't have much of a life. So I work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and then Young Vagabond I do at night and on the weekends. But actually, just a few weeks ago, I had to assess how much effort I was putting into Young Vagabond, to my work, and also my relationships with my friends and family. And they were all sort of suffering a little bit. So I've chosen in a few weeks, I'm going to part-time work and being able to fund a little bit of my work for Young Vagabond, which is really exciting because that's one of the hardest things to do. So it's just making sure you take care of yourself, and just if you need time out, if you take an hour out and treat yourself right, you will do another 5 hours of really good work. But if you just continue going through, you're going to be doing subpar work anyway. So it's not having that guilt. And I think the same would be for studying. If you have something huge to do, take a bit of time out first for yourself and then go into it, because you'll do better work, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Sally, do you find a similar thing when you're juggling training and your work and your studies?
Yeah, I do. It was difficult at the start. It was one of those things that I just played sport, and then as obviously growing up, I had to get a job and do that kind of stuff. And then when I brought study into it, it was very, very difficult. So I was doing it all full time. But for me, I made it work because not only did I love it, what I was doing, I'm one of those people that I like bits and pieces. I can't just do the one thing. So it's just like having a bit of going off to play cricket, and then I could sort of come back and then have my time studying and put my time and energy into that. And then when it came around to doing my work, it was just as good too. So I made it work because I loved what I was doing. So it sort of wasn't a never sort of, it didn't really...
Was it stressful for you?
Stressful, no.
Yeah.
Because obviously too, I surrounded myself with a good group of friends, and had that as well. So, but
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know if you guys agree, but I feel like it's quite easy to get addicted to being busy. So I'm sure that's like a common experience. It looks like we have another audience question. Would you like to come over to the mic?
I actually have two questions. So my first one was building off one of the earlier questions about how none of you really seem to want to call yourself a leader necessarily. How do you think we can change people's attitudes so they do associate the word leader with themselves? Yeah, just so...
So how do we empower people to feel comfortable calling themselves leaders?
Yeah.
Who would like to take that one first?
I reckon, like, for me, I know that doing the things I love doing, and that's what I think a leader is. So leading a positive life or making positive choices. So the moment that you start doing that and owning who you are and being proud of who you are and what you're doing, then that's when you're not going to question yourself as calling yourself a leader.
I think it's about changing the way we look at leadership, that it's not just hierarchical, that it's not about celebrities, and if we change that way, we can see more of ourselves in other leaders, so perhaps identify with ourselves.
I think as well, don't be afraid to call yourself a leader. It's the same with any kind of label if we're trying to change it. You feel happy to stand up and call yourself a leader and hope to empower those around you to call themselves leaders too. I think that's, leading by example by calling yourself a leader.
I think events like this are really important ways to help change the perception of what leadership is, and we've obviously heard lots of different stories about women from different industries who are doing different things and are identified, whether by themselves or by other people, as leaders. And so making sure that we're all aware and we're kind of hopefully changing that perception in society of what leadership is, and it isn't something that's narrow, and then hopefully more people will be comfortable to give themselves that label.
It's actually a really tricky question because statistically speaking, not everyone in the world can be a leader, you would think. But I think that, by nature of people being in this room and by the nature of this kind of conference, then there's an assumption that most people here want to learn leadership and learn how to be leaders. And so I think that it's a matter of, first of all, calling yourself, First of all, doing something that you think is worth calling leader, being a leader about. So I think calling yourself a leader first is possibly the wrong order. Doing something and then saying, and then being comfortable and confident in what you've achieved to say, I am leading in this thing is important. And that might be just within your own life, it might be within your area of specialty, it might be in all kinds of different things. But if you are comfortable with what you've achieved, then you should be able to be comfortable to call yourself a leader. If you're not comfortable with what you've achieved, it might be for the wrong reasons. And you spoke before about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. Often people feel that, I can't be a leader in this because I haven't achieved as much as that person or that person. Well, the fact is that if you've achieved something worth talking about, then you're a leader.
Did you want to say your second question?
Yeah, I think it was kind of answered before, but I'll say it anyway. So how we were talking about before, that there's different kinds of leadership that's for different people. I think most people don't tend to realise that, and they always associate leadership with being in a position of power. So how to kind of get people to realise that it doesn't just have to be a position of power, that they can have their own type of leadership.
Yeah, cool. Actually, this is one of my favourite topics. So we'll start this and then go back that way. Power is a funny thing because traditional view of what power is the CEO or the politician or the whatever. But here's an interesting secret. Citizens are more powerful today than ever before. We can monitor what's going on. A couple of kids with some computers can disrupt a company, and I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but the fact is that we, the people, are the powerful ones now. And so how you be a leader is to recognise the power that you have and to apply that power for the power of good, I would suggest. We don't want to go black hat on everyone. But traditional views of power are wrong. The people that used to have the power 20, 50, 1,000 years ago are not the people that are in power now. We're actually the ones in power.
copy-paste what you just said.
I think we have to consider the way we influence people, and influence is the same as leadership. And while we might not call ourselves a leader, we can change ways by, promoting positivity and showing positivity through what we do and our actions.
I think what it is too is the younger generation, like all you girls out here now, you have the choice to help lead that change. And so like you can either make a pact yourself or whatever it is you do, like it's going to set us up for the future to be able to have the confidence to call ourselves leaders. But not only that too, I'll go back to what Pia said, like challenge authority, like not saying like challenge police and stuff like that, like because you'll get in trouble. But as in, if you don't think something's right or you've got a gut feeling, ask questions from the start, like why? Or why is that happening? Or why do I have to do that? Or why is that over there? Why is it not over there? So I think it's about challenging that perception and
Well, we'll be looking to all of you here to go forth and smash those stereotypes about leadership going forward now. Did you have something to add, Carly?
Yeah, you were talking about challenging, and last year I won an award, and I'm really proud of declining the award. Although it would have looked great on my resume, I declined it because it wasn't the right thing to do. The company that the award was issued by was under investigation for abusing its staff, abusing carers and its staff. And I, to my knowledge, am the only person that's publicly declined the award, and I also couldn't accept the award because I'm a disabled writer, and this was a company around disability. So even if you think, oh, really great if I accept this, or if I do something, if you don't actually believe in it, stand up for that by saying no to something or saying no, this isn't right.
That's really good advice. Thank you so much for your questions. Would you like to ask your question now?
My question was actually directed at Hayley and Ashley, and I was just wondering about where do you think males play a role within feminism and the feminism movement?
If you guys don't answer this, I will, because I have a lot of thoughts.
Oh dear. Okay. I think that men need to get out of our way. First and foremost, as I already said, I have lots of men in my life that I love and that are supportive of me, and I'm supportive of them. But feminism, if we're talking about women, in how it affects women, I think that marketing feminism for how it can benefit men is not necessarily the right way to go about it, and that's just my personal beliefs on it. I don't think that there's no place for men in feminism, but I don't think that we need to make it about how it's going to make them feel, because there's so many things in the world that are already about how men feel and how they fit into the world. And I think that this is like, if people are allies, then regardless of their gender, then that's welcome. But for me, feminism is about how to empower other women and change the perception of gender in a way that benefits all genders, but with the slant on, particularly on women. So.
Oh, can I say something? Yeah. All right, just to be controversial. So I think that I completely agree that we shouldn't be making feminism into being about men. But if feminism is only ever seen as an issue for women, then that's only 50% of the population, and they're going to be rallying around it. I actually think that equality and respect and all of those things that we're trying to get is a whole of society issue and needs to be grappled with by the whole society. And I should just point out, and this isn't the sort of thing that you guys necessarily want to hear at this stage in your life, but some of the worst sexism I've had has been from women. I have to say, like from people who just assume as a geek, as a techie, as a, whatever, then I can't be that and a feminine woman, which is ridiculous. So I think that part of the challenge here is to recognise that it's not men versus women, or indeed men versus women versus, in-betweens. I think it's about recognising that this is a whole of society thing. And that's why I feel really strongly that we shouldn't be segmenting ourselves off into little corners to try to deal with these issues in isolation. We should be taking this to the whole society and saying, let's deal with this collaboratively. But
Actually sounds a lot like you guys are agreeing with each other, so not that controversial.
Yeah, I actually don't disagree at anything that you said. I think more around what's come up recently with Emma Watson and the He for She campaign, there's aspects of that I didn't agree with how it was handled, not because I don't think that men should be invested in the fight for gender equality, but I just thought that the idea of men signing a petition and feeling like they've done their bit for gender is not really that helpful. So I guess I do have some pretty this way ideas on it, but I don't actually disagree with anything that you said.
I think you've hit on one of the most kind of complex and interesting questions that if you work in the feminist space at all, you get asked a lot. So I would really encourage all of you to think about that more deeply on your own as well, and not be scared of the word feminism, because it really is about equality for all genders. That's just my spiel.
And also, it's also not always about agreeing.
Yeah, disagreement is a good thing.
Yeah, we can disagree and still have majority agreement and respect for one another. So that's also a really important point to take away from this. So.
Absolutely. If you have another question, that's fine.
Wonderful. And this just carries on from that question that I just asked, which is for all of you. And it was, how do you personally define feminism?
That's a good one. Let's try and keep our responses to this one relatively short, because I'd love to get to some more questions as well.
Yeah,
start over here.
Put me on the spot. For me, feminism is about empowering each other as women, as in standing being a community and standing up and for what we believe in and what we're trying to achieve. So trying to create change for the positive, for the future. So that's what feminism is for me, because that's the thing, originally I used to think it was, and this is going to be pretty crude, but hating men. So I always went away from it, because men play a major part in my life, because I'm probably closer to my dad than I am my mum. And he's been a good role model, which comes down to choosing just to be a good person. So in a way, he's kind of a feminist himself, because he stands up for women. So it's as a community, as a whole, doing things together to create change for the future for women. So feminism is great.
I think it's about empowering other people, other women. It's about having allies. Like Pia was saying, we need the allies from men, and as a disability activist, I think that we need allies from outside of the disability community, and I'm sure Sally feels the same about Indigenous issues as well. And I also think it's about empowering people, making change, but not tearing each other down, and I see so much of that with online feminists, and I think that has to stop.
I don't know what to say. Feminism is so many things. It's sort of what I live and breathe. Overall, I just think that it's an obvious and necessary step forward to see ourselves grow globally. I don't think it's not so much for me about being a feminist. It's just this is something we need to do. Otherwise, we will keep suffering, and the world will keep suffering without women being empowered. And it just feels like, for me, it makes sense. It's a necessity.
Yeah, I guess on that, I think that feminism is myriad things. It's so many things, and it's, everyday sexism, it's sexism in the workplace, it's, everything outside of the first world that we have no idea about. There are so many aspects to it. There's obviously huge numbers around domestic violence and violence against women within Australia as well. So it's such a hard question to answer, and I wish that we could all give a more succinct one, but yeah, I think it's just trying to be aware of all of the different issues that impact women and maybe trying to do the best across all of those different areas.
Feminism for me is a world where I, because I happen to be a woman, can actually achieve my capacity, my potential, without the artificial barrier of my gender getting in the way. It frustrates me no end when I meet someone who sees me as a female first, and then we've sort of got to get over that little hurdle before they can see me as a fellow human being. Now, and the fact is, most people I deal with I don't have a problem with. Most people, most situations you don't sort of come across, a lot of sexism but the fact is it still does come up. So for me, feminism is about just trying to be treated like a bloody person. Yeah?
Excellent. Thanks for those answers. They were all very thoughtful. We'll move on to our next question, but I would also encourage you all to think about what feminism means to you.
So as young women, we're all beginning to network and form relationships with other people, and it's all really exciting, but one thing I noticed when we were doing the Young Vagabond workshop is that one of the stereotypes placed on women in the media is that we're dependent on men sometimes. So I saw in the Toys R Us catalogues, if I can talk, there was a castle and there was the king like on the throne and there was the damsel in distress and the man was coming to save her. And while I'm in a very happy, healthy relationship, I love my partner and, I have really good relationships with the men in my life. What is your advice to young women maintaining those relationships but also remaining independent, remaining headstrong and sorting that out?
Don't choose an idiot. No, it's actually really, it's amazing the amount of conferences I've been to, and this is, I think, is a bit of a generation gap as well. I've been to so many conferences with particularly older women who are like, what we need to do is we need to get childcare before we can possibly have equality in the workplace. And I'm like, but that's based on the premise that you've arranged a relationship with your partner where you're the primary caregiver. Why don't you have the ability to have an open and equal conversation about them being a primary caregiver? Now I'm in the very... It shouldn't be weird to say this. I'm in the position where my partner has offered to be the primary caregiver, and I'm like, yeah, cool, sweet. It's going to work for me. It's going to work for us. Rah, rah, rah. But when you assume that you're going to be the primary caregiver, when you go into a relationship and you don't have those conversations early, and the sort of man, by the way, that freaks out at that conversation maybe isn't the sort of man that's going to help you be that independent woman that you want to be. So being really clear what you want in a partner and being really clear in yourself about what you're happy to have and what sort of life you want to have and all the rest of it early, I think, is really important, and making sure you've got those respectful kind of relationships where you can have these conversations, because the older generation works on the assumption that women are the primary caregivers, which ironically kind of defeats their purpose a little bit, right? So yeah, just don't choose an idiot.
I think as well, male or female. I think as well, on top of what I said before about not necessarily making feminism about men, kind of encompassed within that is like the idea that I don't think it's necessarily the responsibility of women to explain feminism to men, or people of colour to explain things to white people about like different types of privilege. I don't think it's the responsibility of the people who are at the receiving end of prejudice to ever feel like they need to convince like a vast majority of people. However, in your relationship, that is going to sometimes be necessary. And for me, I've been with my partner for 5 years. For the first 1.5 years of our relationship, I wasn't particularly feminist, and I'm obviously quite strong in my views now. So it has been a rocky road because he's like a fantastic person, but he had no idea about a lot of this stuff before I started educating myself on it and learning about it. And so it has been a continuous process of discussions and disagreements. And I think that step one, don't date an idiot, but also if you happen to date someone that maybe isn't like 100% on the level with your beliefs, whether it's about like feminism or football, who cares? Like it could be anything, but you have to be prepared to have conversations where you're not always going to agree, and either be okay with that or make a change based on the disagreement, depending on how important the topic is to you.
I think the most important thing that I've taken into relationships over the past years is making sure that a partner is a bonus. So never make sure that they're where you get your happiness from, or where you get all of your passion or empowerment from. Ensure that you are doing you, and seeing them at night or talking to them is just like the cherry on the sundae, and that they aren't your entire support system. And open communication. If you don't like something from the get-go, or if if you don't agree with something, say it, because by staying quiet or being the kind of girl that you think you should be in that relationship, in 6 months it's going to make you even madder, and in 12 months it's just like a ball of fury. So like, just be really open and honest and make sure that you're taking care of yourself first and foremost.
Yeah, I want to second what Ashley said about, making sure that the partner's not the be-all and end-all. I think for people with disabilities, their parents and surrounding people often think that a relationship is the holy grail, and that if you have a relationship, then you're normal. And I get a lot of people, like parents with kids with ichthyosis, parents of kids with ichthyosis, say to me, "Oh, I wish my daughter could find love like you found." And I said, "But it's important to me. It's not important for your daughter. Like, what's important to your daughter is loving herself and forging her own career." But on my relationship, I never thought I'd have a boyfriend, and actually thought I was too busy for a boyfriend. And I'm like, "Oh, I don't have time." But now I'm busier than ever. And I just wrote this blog post last week or the week before, because we went around to my mother-in-law's, and she put on Bette Midler's Wind Beneath My Wings. Do you know that song? Did you ever know that you're my hero, you're everything I wanted to be? Anyway, so I got a bit drunk, and I was singing this to my fiance, and I was like really like... Anyway, and I was doing fly like that, and he's like, "Shut up, we're not getting married." Anyway, but we are. And then and then I realised that he is the wind beneath my wings, because he lets me do these things. It's not like he's giving me permission, but he gives me the time and he gives me the support. And the other day I was talking about invoicing someone. I said, "Well, maybe I'll just charge them a little bit, because, I don't know if they can afford it." And he said, "Set your standard high, because then they won't come to you next time and with a low standard." And I said, "Thank you for that. That's really nice. Thank you for believing me."
Second what Carly was saying there, like, really, but what I'll start off with is half the time people go into relationships for the wrong reasons. So if you are quite happy with yourself and happy with being alone, and you're a well set up person at the time, and somebody comes into your life and they compliment you, that's when you should be in a relationship with somebody, not for the sake of just being in a relationship. So if they don't compliment you, then you probably shouldn't be with them anyway.
This is all such excellent advice. I wish that we could compile this into a column for Young Vagabond and share it with more young women. Thank you so much for your question. We do actually have time for probably one more audience question if someone would like to come up. Is there anyone who'd like to ask a final question? Yeah. Oh, we've got two. This will be our last two.
I actually have two, but the first one's really short. The first one is, where can I get a copy of Young Vagabond?
Youngvagabond.com.au.
Okay, and the second one is, who are some of your role models? Like, who do you really, really look up to?
Let's try and do one role model each.
I say my mum. I always say it. I can't ever think of a better one. My mum was amazing because she just let me do whatever I wanted and really encouraged critical thinking. So she never took a side. And if ever I said something, she encouraged me to look at it from the other point of view. And forever, that's just set me up with a really good foundation of understanding and empathy.
Mine's Stella Young. I think she made disability really accessible to the mainstream, and she challenged how people think. And sadly, since her death, I think that more people have taken notice about the issues that people with disabilities face.
Mine are definitely my folks, my mum and dad. They let me be whoever I wanted to be. They've, from the get-go, whatever I wanted to do in life, they were there, and they never pushed me into anything. They never they let me carve my own path, and never judged me, and always backed me and always said that they were proud of me. So
that's really great.
I have so many. One is really hard. I think at the moment someone who I really admire is former YV cover girl and friend of Young Vagabond, Caitlin Stacey. She is an actress, so yes, she's a celebrity, and she's often in the media for being argumentative on social media, but she's a huge advocate for women's issues and just someone who has a lot to say that makes a lot of sense for someone who's only 25. Yeah, she's one of many.
I got many as well. In fact, I try to find role models in friends and bosses and those kinds of things around me as well. But one I'm going to say, which you would never have heard of before, is a dude called Wong Fei Hung. Wong Fei Hung was a martial artist from 130 years ago who was a scholar and a doctor and just a totally cool dude, upstanding member of his community. And basically, when there was a massive invasion in their area, he just rallied the entire community to effectively defend themselves. And the saying that they had was, if you don't have a sword, use a knife. If you don't have a knife, use your finger, use your hands, your fists. If you don't have fists, use your elbows. It was kind of this never surrender kind of attitude. And so he stayed true to himself and to his beliefs and to his integrity and his nobility as a person, and at the same time managed to really help and support his community to do great things.
Thank you. Great question.
Mine kind of leads on from the last one, but I was wondering, has there been a specific person or event that has pushed you or inspired you into fighting for this cause?
By this cause, do we mean gender equality?
Yeah, gender equality, feminism, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, wonderful.
I had a situation, so I'll start this in. There's been a lot of things that have tipped towards this, but for me, the real turning point was when I was 23. So, I started working in IT when I was 19. Used to go to work and I loved what I did. It was fun, it was interesting and all the rest of it. But I found myself, I was surrounded by men, which I was completely comfortable with. I've always had a lot of male friends and I've never had a problem with it. But I remember when I was 23, a woman walked into the workplace and she was dressed very, very, very pretty. And I immediately thought, oh, she mustn't be technical. And I went, oh crap, I'm part of the problem. And I realised at that point that I had absorbed something. I wasn't sure what that something was, but that was only going to make the problem worse. And so I really undertook to understand why I'd come to that perspective and to turn it around, because it was wrong. It was completely, patently wrong. So a lot of other things have happened, but that was a real turning point for me.
Again, really hard to pick one, because I feel like it was a culmination of things. Probably seeing lots of young women in my life who were either family members or acquaintances or friends who were going through what I'd been through kind of 5 to 10 years before, and seeing what they were struggling with and just really identifying with it and thinking it was shit, and thinking of everything I had gone through since that point that was also shit, and just wanting it to be different for them. And then probably also Ash, because because as much as I had kind of built up all of these views and this desire to do something, I already talked about the fact I'm a very insular person and in my own head a lot, and I don't think I would have kind of stepped outside of that and done anything external if I didn't have someone else to be accountable for. And to me, Ash is that person, or at least initially was, until we grew our team to be bigger.
Back at ya. So discovering that you're really passionate about something when you spend your time with people that aren't passionate can be really challenging. And so when I met Hayley, it was oh, finally, a breath of fresh air, somebody that shares the same views as me. And it allowed me to be more confident and vocal about my views and less scared about losing people in my life because they didn't agree with me or support me. And then, like she said, this is the longest relationship I've had. So it's just having that constant support system as I venture through whatever journey this is really amazing.
So I don't want to sound not in solidarity with all of you, but I guess as a person that looks different with this disability, the woman thing isn't an issue for other people, it's the way I look. So I haven't had any issues or discrimination about being a woman. I've had issues and discrimination about the way I look. And I guess the thing that has shaped me is maybe knowing I can make a difference. When the taxi driver thing happened to me and I realised that I had the power on social media in a good way to change things. And last night I was in a cab coming to the airport from my house to the airport, and the driver asked me what I did, and I said I'm a writer, and he said, have you ever written about taxi drivers? Yes. I said, yes, I have. He says, what did you write about? And I said, well, I wrote about how a taxi driver, or 3 actually, discriminated against me. And we were talking about the taxi driver, and then he said to me, I want to apologise to you on behalf of my race and on behalf of the taxi driver. I said, well, there's no need, because not everyone's like you. And he was just so lovely, and we were talking about the diversity of disability and how anyone could acquire a disability, and the taxi drivers should think differently before they treat people. So I guess that was my turning point, that I realised. And now, sometimes the media calls me about taxi driver comments, and I don't really know too much other than what happened to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens to my friends on a daily basis, but it's kind of nice to be called upon to make comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I face it in too, so with sport and my work. So especially with sport, we're definitely not equal to men in the terms of being paid and opportunities and stuff. Especially too, like commentary. We're sort of breaking down the barriers now at the moment, and there's, it's pretty exciting, because there's a group of women and one lady or woman from each state and territory sit on a table, like MOU, to try and fight for those. So that's creating change already in sport. But when it comes to sort of my work as well, I've never really sort of seen myself as a feminist, but being here today and sort of it's opened my eyes up, and I actually do it without knowing at work. So sort of becoming the respect, equity and diversity officer, sort of trying to and changing that perception what the guys have on the girls there. So about just getting in, having a go, taking the initiative and saying, you know what, I'm Sal, I'm not a girl. As in, I don't see myself just as a woman, I see myself as Sally, working in that industry because I love it. So I think that's me sort of pushing those barriers, and being a feminist in my own right, sort of thing. So.
Thank you so much for your question. This has been such a wonderful session, hearing from some inspiring, very strong, very resilient young women. If you could all put your hands together and give our speakers a huge thank you. Now, you lovely ladies can actually exit the stage now and rifle through your goodie bags while we move on to our final session today. So we're going to take a bit of time now to reflect on the day. And we really want to make sure that you all get something tangible out of the workshops and this plenary session that you've had today, and something that you can relate back to your own goals going forward. So the first thing we're going to do is work through some of that personal reflection. On your table, you will find some sheets to prompt you in reflecting on your experience today. There's some A4 sheets of paper. These sheets are just for you. We're not going to collect them. No one needs to read anything out. So I really want you to be, open and honest with yourself as you work through them. So at the top of the page, please keep listening, guys. I'm still explaining. So at the top of the page, you'll find some space for you to draw a picture or respond creatively to capture how you feel about your experiences today. For example, you might want to draw a scene from one of the sessions today, or you might want to draw a picture of what your future might look like. Be as creative as you like. Then there are a number of questions for you to answer, and those will help you think about what the next steps are for you. So be as detailed or as brief as you like. Like I said, this is really just for you. So if you could take about 5 minutes now to fill out those sheets, and I'll call you back in a little bit.